Do these from scratch. Call it out.
Yeah. Because if I were a parent, and they had 7 weeks in release, 7 weeks
the interference.
Good.
I don't want anybody to be caught off guard about it.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Town Hall, to the Council Chambers. I will go ahead and call the meeting to order for Tuesday, May 28, 2024. Glad you're here, and welcome those who are joining us on live stream. We'll go right now into the invocation, and tonight what I would like to do is just, sharing time of meditation and take a moment of silence together and just be in unity about our great town of Apex. And if you would join me in that moment of silence at this time. Thank you so much. If you're willing and able, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, we'll move now to the consent agenda. All consent agenda items are considered routine to be enacted by one motion with the adoption of the consent agenda and without discussion. If a council member requests discussion of an item, the item may be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
All right, have a motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, we'll move now into presentations. And tonight we have two proclamations. The first proclamation tonight is LGBTQIA+ Pride Month. And if you would please join me down and we'll present that proclamation this time.
It's with pride that I get a chance to lead this one off. LGBTQIA Pride Month 2024. Whereas LGBTQIA+ Pride Month is celebrated each June to acknowledge the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, and asexual community and celebrate their lives, achievements, and contributions to society. And
whereas 2024 represents the 55th Pride Month celebration, which originated in 1970 as a commemoration of the protests held in New York City against the unjust criminalization and policing of homosexuality known as the Stonewall Uprising. And
whereas LGBTQIA+ individuals in Apex are beloved members of our community and our parents, teachers, public servants, doctors, lawyers, business owners, artists, and so much more. And whereas we affirm that LGBTQIA+ rights are human rights and acknowledge that much more progress remains before our country is truly an equal and equitable society. And
whereas the town of Apex stands resolute in our commitment to ensuring our community is a welcoming and loving place to all people, regardless of their sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression.
Now, therefore, I, Jacques K. Gilbert, Mayor of Apex, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim the month of June 2024 as LGBTQIA+ month, Pride Month, and encourage residents to celebrate the progress that has been made and recognize the continuing efforts toward creating a more just society for all people in the LGBTQIA+ community. Sound is 28th day of May 2024. So coming forward today, absolutely. If Aaron, Deanna, Carrie, Ellen, Chris, and Nicole would join me to receive the proclamation.
Oh, are we good? Oh, where am I going? Okay.
There we go.
Stop talking. Stop talking. Yeah. I'm going to bed. Join us on June 8th.
All right, now we have Juneteenth proclamation, and kicking us off tonight will be Councilmember Mahaffey.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a proclamation for Juneteenth 2024. Whereas Juneteenth commemorates African-American freedom and recognizes the end of slavery in the United States, it is also a day for communities to come together to celebrate African-American heritage and culture, resiliency, and unity. And whereas on January 1st, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, setting in motion the end of slavery in the United States. And
Whereas it was not until June 19th, 1865, that General Gordon Granger announced General Order Number 3 in Galveston, Texas, declaring all enslaved individuals free. And whereas Juneteenth is the oldest African-American holiday that observes and commemorates the day when 250,000 enslaved Africans in America learned of their freedom 2.5 years after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation. And
Whereas on June 21st, 2020, the Apex Mayor and Town Council was one of the first elected bodies in North Carolina to authorize the observance of Juneteenth as a town-recognized holiday where offices and facilities are closed. And
Whereas the town of Apex, in collaboration with the Juneteenth Committee, is honored to host the 4th annual Juneteenth Festival on Saturday, June 15th, 2024, from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m., which will explore the history of Juneteenth and offer a time for the community to join in celebration with live music, food trucks, local vendors, and much, much more.
Now, therefore, I, Jacques K. Gilbert, Mayor of Apex, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim June 19th, 2024 as Juneteenth in the town of Apex and invite the community to join me in commemorating the historic moment in time for our nation to move us forward together in freedom and equality for Black Americans. Signed this 28th day of May, 2024. And receiving the proclamation tonight is TJ Evans and Anthony Barnes Jr. and Calabria Gilbert and Croy Evans. Come forward. What's in?
I know, right? Steal the show. It's no longer about you. Is this baby's first council meeting? It is.
it is.
All right. Congratulations.
Can't miss out on an opportunity to promote Juneteenth. My partner always, she makes fun of me because she's like, that's all you talk about these days is Juneteenth. Because the other day I was at the dentist appointment and they told me I was going to pay $1,500 for a root canal. So I'm like, if I'm paying $1,500, I need some of these funds to go back to the Juneteenth sponsorship. And then proceeded to talk with him about Juneteenth, the whole operation, which probably wasn't a good idea. But no, I just wanted to share a personal story before I got into event details. For me, like Juneteenth means a lot. Growing up as a biracial individual, I never really felt like I felt in or really fit in for a couple of reasons. I mean, when I was with my black friends, I was told that I wasn't, black enough, right? I was kind of the, light bright or white boy is what they used to call me. And then when I was with my white friends, I was kind of like the token black dude or the gangster of the group and things of that nature. And as I grew up, I realized it was because of the division within the community. And I started to realize how we would use our history, we would use our shared experiences, we would use what other people have told us to create this notion that we're different. But through my search in life, I've realized that if we peel those layers back, if we start to have tough conversations, if we start to realize that we can come together and do this together, we'll realize that the best way forward is together with unity and love in the forefront. And so for us, that's the message that we want to share about Juneteenth. It's about everyone coming together, right? It's about celebrating a monumental time in history. It's about realizing where we've come from. It's about realizing where we are now and what's left to come. And so that's what we want to share. We have so many things in store for everyone to come out this year. We have a beer garden. We have a digital artwork installation by Middle Creek. We have an art exhibit with Apex High School. We have Juneteenth Story Hour with Ava Perry Library. We have a virtual reality bus. We have vendors, food trucks, performers ranging from youth to professional. We have a Juneteenth history exhibit. Basically what I'm saying is we have it all. But again, for us, it's not just a holiday for one community, it's for everyone. And, I just want to say thank you to the team. Not all of us are here today, but just for your guys' perseverance and for your guys' patience and also just the ability to be solution oriented means a lot. And I want to say thank you to my beautiful partner. She's the mastermind behind all this as far as content creation goes. And one last thing, I just want to thank you, Mayor. There would be no Juneteenth proclamation without the mayor's stamp of approval. There would be no Pride proclamation without the mayor's stamp of approval. And so I just want to say thank you for your efforts and ensuring that our community is inclusive. So with that being said, please everyone come out June 15th from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. It is in the depot parking lot and we would love to see everyone there. Please post our flyers on your Instagrams, tell your friends, your mom, your dad, everyone, please. So we would love to see you there. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Council, for joining in the reading of the proclamation. We'll move now to setting of the regular meeting agenda. Are there any recommended changes before we move to a motion? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right, the motion, Mahaffey.
Second.
Second, again, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. We're moving now to public forum. This is an opportunity for the community to speak, and please follow the public participation policy. And remember the amount of time that you have. Please follow the series of lights, green, yellow, and red. Yellow, be 30 seconds left in the presentation. And please respect the time for everyone. So the first speaker tonight, we'll open it up with Dawn Cozzolino. If you would please step forward.
Dawn Cozzolino, 3632 Bosco Road. Good evening, Apex Town Council and Mayor. Last time we talked, you first heard about the Friendship New Hill Community Land Use Map and the Neighborhood Conservation Overlay District. A tremendous amount of time, effort, and money was put forward by our community, especially Elizabeth Stitt, who's in the audience today, to develop this proposal. Also, Jenna and Sharon from the planning staff invested time with us to prepare for the presentation to you. I wanted to note that a couple of the council members made cynical comments about it that really took away the spirit of the proposal, and we greatly desire to work closely with you. I don't want to see it being a barrier. Our community works proudly in our daily lives, full-time on farms, businesses, family, and at our work. Apex's future land use map proposed designations have pushed an additional burden to us. We are the only ones to march forward with environmentally and people-centric solutions we bring to the Apex Town Council and Mayor and other government staff. This creativity is what we bring to the community and those in Wake County in order to thrive. Please don't stifle this. We look forward to the discussions that we're going to be having in the open forum to discuss this further. I have another minute left, but I want to thank you in advance for that. Top of mind is also the traffic congestion. This is a terrible problem. It's caused by obvious overdevelopment in our area. All the high density planning around the area. And in fact, there's public forum on the new Holman Road, adding more annexation, zoning, et cetera. You see it now with the accidents, the road rage driving incidents. It's compounded further with going live on these large scale city developments like Depot 499 and the Viridia. Keep in mind that we don't add the low, high, or medium density. It's from your approvals. And it's unfortunate that the Wake County Sheriff and the Highway Patrol have to monitor our areas. So I just want to make that statement, and perhaps there's other solutions we'll be bringing to you, but please keep in mind the traffic. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth Stitt.
Elizabeth Ray Stitt, 3113 Friendship Road. Mayor, Town Council, good evening. So as Don was talking about the Neighborhood Conservation Overlay District, we did work with the land use zoning attorney to give us the guidelines of what we can work within so that we're not asking for something that's outside of the boundaries. So Apex already has some of this with the small town character overlay district. It's just our district's a little bit different. So we have proposed this to Wake County as well because we see ourselves as one community. We're not Apex ETJ, we're not Wake County, we are one community. So Wake County is working on their land use map, and they're holding a public outreach on June 12th at the New Hill Holloman Community Center. And since it's not a town sanctioned event, I hope all of you can come out without getting in trouble by the number of you are in a room. And there was a question about how this was being organized by our community. There is a representative from each road. So I believe some of you know Tony Sanatoro. He's off of Pleasant Plains Road. I represent Friendship Road ETJ portion. Kirk Kuchler, who has been to a number of these meetings, he represents Creeks Bend and Hazelhurst. Beth Bland represents Friendship Road Wake County section. Don Cozzolino is Bosco Road, and Patty McIver, who's here tonight for the first time, right there, she represents Mason Road. So, you know, we've organized as a steering committee, and to be clear, we're not anti-development. That's not what this is about. This is putting parameters in so that we have low conflict in the development process. There's certain things about our area that we want to be able to preserve. So of the 247 properties in our area, and we excluded some because some that are already too far down the path of development, we're not here to try to go back and do anything retroactive. We realize that's too much of an ask. But of the 247, we had 61% of those property owners review and sign on to our petition that they were for the things that were in that overlay district. We do have some folks who said no, primarily because they want no development, and we know that's not realistic. We know that there's going to be some development. So where you have questions, we would love to have the opportunity to sit down and go in depth as to how we went through this process and help you understand it's not anti-development. This is the roadmap for our future, relationship together, and we want you to be a part of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Alexis Kennedy.
We have 4. The other one had to run out with the kids. Good evening, council members. I come to you today to respond to the slanderous, hateful, xenophobic comments addressed to me and my community. 2 weeks ago, on my birthday, May 14th, a large group of Zionists came into these halls, and in their total of almost 24 minutes, we were subjected to being called rats, jihadist, implying we were not Americans, claimed that we supported the death of the LGBTQ community, and even made a salacious comment that we wanted to kill all Jews and take over the world and impose Shira law. I would like to say that it was terrifying to be in a room of racists that racially profiled me and my group. For instance, the fact that my hair is brown, my eyes are brown, and my skin is olive, that they assumed I was Muslim. When in actuality, which the council is aware, I'm half Guatemalan and half European. I was raised Catholic with a sprinkle of Baptist, and as an adult, I have no affiliation to a religion. My belief is that you be kind, you treat people with respect, and you leave the world a better place than you found it. I believe in body autonomy, religious freedom, and most importantly, the separation of church and state. And when I condemn a government, I don't condemn the religion, as I view them as two separate entities. And there is a reason why our founding fathers demanded it, which is why it's in our First Amendment. Because we know people abuse religion for power. And I understand that Israel abuses its power by using past trauma done to the Jewish community by Europeans and oppressing the Palestinians. I'm wise enough to blame an individual or government, not the religion. I know there's a difference between Jews and Zionists, because there are plenty of Zionists that are Christians, atheists, and even Muslims. To address the LGBTQ, right now, a Palestinian is more likely to die from being bombed by Israel than being killed for being gay. So let's stop the bombing of people so people can grow and learn not to be homophobic. And let's not mince words. Gay marriage and interreligion marriages are not allowed in Israel. You need to leave the country to get married. This is coming from the most democratic country in the Middle East. They even brought up September 11th, which 20 years ago, half the population in Gaza wasn't even born and had nothing to do with it. But as my mama always says, don't throw stones if you live in a glass house, because most of us know about the USS Liberty, where Israel killed American troops that were flying our flag, killing 34 American soldiers, which to me is 1,000,000 times worse than a video of some dancing Palestinians 20 years ago. Or in a more recent timeline, where Israel killed 7 World Kitchen volunteers, one of whom was American. For the grotesque story about the pregnant woman, that was debunked. Unfortunately, on October 7th, the youngest victim was a 10-month-old baby. and she had a name, and her name is Mila Cohen. A child's death is tragic, and it's dishonorable to her memory to put forth a lie that removes the remembrance of her, and also the 38 other children that perished on that day. And the last thing that I need to address was someone said that Palestine never existed and that God promised them the land 4,000 years ago. I have submitted to the council that is an excerpt of the Paris Peace Conference from 1919 to 1920. And there, they were discussing how to rule Palestine after the dismantlement of the Ottoman Empire that ruled the land for 600 years. I don't know where anywhere else a 4,000-year-old land ownership stands in this day and age. Palestine did exist. I can go through with the history and facts, but if you want to bring up something that isn't real, that would be Netanyahu's name, which was changed from Benjamin Michalowski because he was Polish, and he is Polish. But he changed his name to sound like he was from the region. And now that we got that out of the way, I want to discuss the main reason why I'm here, why I have been coming here since January, which is to have our city council sign and support a ceasefire, a permanent one, and go through our portfolio and ensure that we are not investing or working with any companies that work with Israel. For the last 3 days, I have been filled with motherly and human rage. I have witnessed true atrocities, live streamed for the whole world to see. I can't go into it because I'm still processing the trauma. But it was a UN encampment filled with men, women, and children in tents. And I am sick of the government telling me it's not our problem when those bombs have our names on it, and it is our money that is supporting it. I first tried to tackle it with my senators. They said it wasn't their problem. I tried to tackle it with Congress Nickelman, and he shut the door on me physically and verbally, and even called the police on a group of mothers with children and veterans because we were threatening. And it's not a surprise, because if you go on his Instagram account and he follows 94 people in this big state for District 13, and one of them is AIPAC. So it tells you where his alliance lies, and it's not with us. I am told it's not a local issue, so there is no accountability. And my belief is it starts at the bottom, because from the bottom we can grow, and we can get stronger and go higher. Right now, our Congress is hiding in their offices, jumping into elevators that Americans can't get into. But here I stand, and I'll start small, because I am a believer that all children are our children. So if that child lives 500 miles away from me, it is still my child. I am still responsible for their well-being and livelihood, that they have food in their bellies, that they have a safe place to sleep. Convincing me that burning children alive is necessary to protect another country. If you were not moved by the thought of being burned alive, or a child witnessing their own father being burned alive, may your reflection haunt you. Thank you.
Thank you. Lydia Wiggins.
Good evening. I'm Lydia, a current student and FFA member at Apex High School. I'm here proudly representing our 2024 Agricultural Issues team. So we are tasked with finding agriculturally related issues in our community and bringing it to the attention of others. As a resident in the town of Apex, there is no better place than here to present a prevalent issue. Today I will talk about the urbanization of agriculturally productive land. North Carolina has a smaller amount of people living in urban areas than the national average, but has increased urbanization over the past 2 decades. In 2010, 2 out of every 3 North Carolina residents was living in an urban area, up from 60% in the year 2000. Expanding neighborhoods taking over farmland brings up big problems. More people moving to certain areas means needing more houses, so they are often built where crops are growing. This spreading out, often called urban sprawl, causes a variety of issues. Losing farmland makes it harder to grow food locally, which can raise food prices and make communities more reliant on imported food. I know what you're thinking. Food prices are already through the roof, and now I'm telling you the prices might continue to rise. According to the American Farmland Trust, North Carolina loses about 55 acres of farmland every day. What are the risks? Converting farmland into housing developments can lead to habitat loss, soil erosion, water pollution, and decreased biodiversity. Urban development typically increases water demand for industrial and commercial purposes as well as residential. This can lead to competition for water resources. According to the North Carolina National Heritage Program, about 20% of North Carolina is farmland. Agriculture is the second largest land use category, covering 6.9 million acres of the state's land and open water area. 750,000 jobs are in agriculture, and in 2021, these jobs contributed to $92.7 billion in economic impact. As an example, cows need fields to roam and graze. If there's not enough land for this, then we won't have enough cows. No cows means no cheeseburgers, and that's a world I don't want to live in. Farmland serves as green spaces that provide environmental and recreational benefits to the communities. The land plays an important role in carbon farming and agroforestry. When land is converted, this can release stored carbon and contribute to greenhouse gas emissions through increased urbanization and transportation. The loss of cultural and historical significance reflecting the heritage of farm communities will be destroyed and when land is repurposed. While the conversion of land poses risks and challenges, there can be benefits as well. Housing developments often stimulate economic activity by creating jobs in construction, real estate, retail, and service industries. New residents can also boost local businesses, the development of which property values benefiting homeowners and increasing their equity. By the year 2040, North Carolina's population is expected to reach about 13 million people in the state. With a growing population, neighborhood sizes will increase, agricultural land will begin to shrink, leaving North Carolina unable to grow and produce enough food for such a large population. In the most recent state population assessment, North Carolina was projected to increase by 1.3%. Thank you for your time, and I hope you learned something from my presentation.
Thank you. Good. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming out to speak tonight. Public forum. We'll close it out now and move to our next item. Move to the public hearings. And the first public hearing tonight is annexation number 767, Apex Commerce Center, Lot E, 5125 Jesse Drive. Presented tonight by Diane Kent.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So this annexation is in the far eastern area of town. It is off of Jesse Drive, as was mentioned, near the Horton Park PUD. This is part of Apex Commerce Center. It's Lot E, and so they are getting close to getting their construction plans approved and do need to annex in order to have access to town utilities. Staff does recommend approval.
All right, thank you. Any questions? All right, hearing none, we'll open up the public hearing for comment. No one signed up to speak. We'll close it. It's back to council for a possible motion.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All right, have a motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Move now to public hearing 2 and 3 together, annexation number 779, and then rezoning case number 24CZ03. Shelley Mayer.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening.
As you know, this project is down on New Hill Holloman Road. It's at the town's extreme southwestern corner. The project consists of 2 parcels. They're about 25.4 acres and located on the west side of New Hill Holloman Road, just north of US 1. These parcels are currently in Wake County's jurisdiction. Are currently in Wake County's jurisdiction and are zoned highway district, which is that kind of magenta color that you see in front of you. The applicants are requesting that the rezoning be planned commercial conditional zoning. The 2045 land use map designates this site as office employment and commercial services, and the proposed zoning district complies with that designation. The existing site is mostly wooded, although you can see kind of a narrow area through here that's cleared. That is an existing Town of Apex utility easement, and just to the south where you can see the deciduous trees is a stream buffer that runs through there. The applicant conducted neighborhood meetings on January 25th and April 17th. Those meeting reports are attached to your staff report. The applicant's proposing 32 uses, which are shown on page 2 of your staff report. I'm not going to read those all to you, but just to give you a sample, they include health, fitness center or spa, church or place of worship, daycare facility, restaurant general, medical or dental office, retail sales, and studio for art. The applicant has agreed to the town's standard architectural conditions for non-residential development. You've seen those on a lot of projects. The EAB also met with the applicant on April 10th. 6 zoning conditions were recommended, and the only one that was not adopted was a condition to add solar panels to the project. The applicant just wasn't comfortable adding that at this point, although it's something they did commit to looking into as they get deeper into the building design. Conditions 2 through 7 are standard environmental conditions recommended by the EAB. The language is consistent with what you've seen on other cases. They include committing to installing signs next to SCMs to prohibit fertilizer, greater biodiversity and using native species in the landscaping, reduced clearing within the stream buffers, warmer colored outdoor lighting, selecting warm season grasses, and treating the 25-year storm instead of just the 10-year. In addition, the applicant submitted a traffic impact analysis for the proposed rezoning, even though it wasn't required for this type of zoning. The results of the TIA have been incorporated into those zoning conditions. Planning Board heard this project at their May 13th meeting and unanimously voted to recommend denial. At that time, staff was also recommending denial because we didn't believe the proposed road improvement conditions would be enough to guarantee that Church Road was widened to a safe width. It currently varies from 16 to 18 feet wide across most of it, and the town's typical standard is a minimum of 20 feet. So we were working with the board, with the applicant at that time. Planning Board seemed to agree with us that that the language they were proposing was not sufficient. Since Planning Board, however, staff and the developer have worked together to amend those conditions so that the road will be widened to a safe section. Unfortunately, that change was completed after my staff report was sent in, so you guys have the old version. The developers agreed to 2 revised conditions for the New Hill Holloman Road condition, which is 8A. The only change was that we added based on an engineer's estimate to the text, just to clarify how the fee in lieu might be calculated if that's necessary. The text for the Church Road one is a little bit more extensive. The engineering, our transportation engineers worked with the applicant's engineers to come up with a cross-section that would fit within the existing right-of-way, which they provided as an attachment, shown as Exhibit A. And then a couple of changes to show that if the sidewalk requires easements, and a good faith effort is made to acquire those through private negotiation, they may be able to provide a fee in lieu for the sidewalk portion of that if the sidewalk extends outside of the existing right-of-way. It is a fairly large right-of-way though, so we're not certain that'll be necessary. As of that change, which I did not read exclusively to you, but I gave you the summary of, Planning and Transportation Infrastructure Development staff recommend approval with the conditions proposed by the applicant. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. The applicant is also here, as is Russell.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, I had two. I'll do this first, if you don't mind. Ms. Mayo, the town of Apex government's kind of land poor because of the decisions that were made in the past. And the town owns a lot of property to the west of this parcel with the Western Wake facility. And there's a section, from my amateur eye, it looks like it could be connected with this, and it's outside the stream bed, kind of beside the road, kind of a little oval shape. If you go to the southwest part of this, yeah, right there. I mean, I saw an email from the developer. I didn't get to read it today, so I have to ask them too. But will any site plan require any kind of? Well, first of all, I'm not sure if there, with the Western Wake facility, if there's any possibility of carving off any of that for surplus in the future or other uses. And if there is a possibility of that, have you guys thought about the need to possibly have a connection road and or utility connection to that parcel?
I am not aware of any conversations of that nature as far as carving off a piece of the Western Wake property. I would have to refer that to Diane. It looks as though she's not aware of any conversations of that nature either. We would have to have more conversations internal to staff.
If we found that there's a possibility that this could be surplused at some point, the part east of that little creek, would the site plan require any kind of stubbing because it's not connected to any road?
My understanding is that if that were the case, the UDO would require a connection of some kind, whether that be an access easement or a stub street, to provide connectivity between the parcels.
Okay, so there'll be a discussion about the rules regarding that land piece and if it's appropriate.
It's also currently zoned LI, so unless it's going to be developed for light industrial uses, it would have to be rezoned at that point anyway.
So in terms of the stub street, it already has road connection out to, and I forget the name of the road, out to the west. The overall Western Wake Regional Water Reclamation Facility has an approved site plan for that whole parcel. It already has access.
Yes.
And
if it was
so
surplus,
the
it would
UDO
not.
would not require, I'm trying to answer that.
Sorry,
It
go
would
ahead.
not be required to that southern portion that you're asking about.
Okay.
There would not be a stub street required to be placed there. We would have to look up and see what exactly got approved. I know there were some very large buffers that were required on that parcel that likely make development of that corner less likely, but I would have to look up. It was many years ago. I don't recall. I think there's a 300, it's like a 300-foot buffer or something. It's a very large buffer around.
300 foot from the edge of it?
I believe so.
Like that.
Okay.
It's at least 100 feet that I remember clearly from the plat.
Marty's giving us
200.
fingers, 200.
200 feet.
Okay.
I mean, logically, the creek bed would be a nice kind of dividing line, but I guess it was a bigger. Okay. Okay. Thank you. The other one was about sidewalk connectivity. I know when there's certain neighborhoods, if like I'm thinking about the one near Bellicasa that we approved a while ago, but they did a sidewalk all the way to Apex Barbecue at the end of it, even though there wasn't a driveway there. And I was wondering, would there be any requirements or interest? Staff thought about the need for a sidewalk to connect all the way to New Wilhelman at the corner there, not via church, but the corner. Yeah.
I believe we did have some conversations about that. There's some conversations about the widening of this bridge at the moment, and this is really, it's about 50 feet of frontage. So at this point, I'm not certain that we were ready to require that.
The limited width possibly precludes any kind of sidewalk.
Especially as close to the interchange as it is. Now, any additional detail that you'd like, I'd have to ask Russell to answer. That's really the extent of my memory about that conversation.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Hear from the applicant.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. Matthew Carpenter with Parker Poe, 301 Fayetteville Street, here this evening on behalf of the developer and the property owner, the Keith Corporation. Also with me tonight are Bill Baker with the Keith Corporation, Jonathan Balderson with McAdams, our civil engineer, and Travis Fluitt with Kinley Horn, our transportation engineer. Thanks to Shelley for the presentation. Really, the purpose of this rezoning is to allow the development and construction of a new YMCA. And so the Keith Corporation has been in discussions with the Y for some time now, I think going back to last year. And they have an agreement with the Y to develop this site for the YMCA. And so really the purpose of the rezoning is to get the zoning solidified to allow the Y to move to the next step of internal approvals. And so there's an agreement in place. They're excited about the opportunities here. As you all know, you've seen the growth in southwestern Wake County and Apex and New Hill. And so they're excited about a new YMCA to serve this location in this area. So really the goal is to get to the next step. And the Keith Corporation has a lot of experience developing commercial real estate sites for different types of end users. You can see at the top right of your screen, a Duke Medical Facility. At the bottom, another, I believe, medical office building. And then at the bottom left, a new office project that was recently completed in Charleston at the Cooper River Bridge there. It's a really pretty project called Morrison Yard. And so, all that's just to say that they have experience doing this. And I think you can feel comfortable that they're a good partner with the Y to make this happen. And then Shelley did a good job about the different types of uses here. We really are at the edge of the town's jurisdiction. You can see just south of US 1 is Holly Springs. You can see the Amgen Economic Development site just on the corner of the screen there. But obviously, as has been mentioned before, it's a quickly growing area. A big part of our rezoning process has been following the Western Big Branch Area Plan. I think the town has done a good job here of trying to get in front of the planning for this area. I know they've gotten a lot of feedback from residents, some of whom you'll hear from tonight. And so they're in the middle of this Big Branch Area planning process. The good news is that this property is shown as commercial office in the draft Western Big Branch Area Plan. So I think there have been 3 different scenarios presented. There's been a lot of feedback from the community that, scenario 1 is favored. And so, in scenario 1, we're also shown as commercial office. So the goal is to be consistent with that plan when it is finalized and with the land use map designation, which is similarly commercial in office. Again, Shelley mentioned the existing zoning here, which is highway district. I think it's different than some cases you see because it is a more entitlement that you typically see in a rural area. A lot of times it's a residential agricultural or rural residential district where there's no existing entitlement there. Here, there are residential and commercial uses that are entitled. Obviously, those would have to use sewer if they, stayed in the county, septic fields and wells rather. And so there are limitations there, but there is some existing entitlement. And so the proposal is to rezone it to planned commercial conditional zoning, which, again, the number one purpose is to permit the YMCA. Sort of as a second aim, we wanted to rezone the property to uses that are consistent with the land use map designation. Part of what I think the town has heard in the Big Branch Area Plan process is that residents here want community serving type uses and less residential, and so we're doing that here by removing the residential entitlement and proposing uses that can serve the community. And so we try to do that through the list of permitted conditions too, list of permitted uses rather. You can see in condition 1, Shelley did a good job going through those. We did exclude several there that are more intense commercial type uses that we didn't think would fit here. Things like gas stations, drive-throughs, and bars and nightclubs. And so those are excluded. So it's really lower intensity community, retail, restaurant uses, and obviously the health and fitness center that's the YMCA use. as Shelley mentioned, at planning board, really the sole issue was this Church Road improvements language. We've known from the beginning of the case that Church Road was in bad shape. It's really a very narrow road, rural street section. And so we've spent a lot of time on, well, how do we improve it? Because the majority of the improvements are off-site. And altogether, it's about 1,300 feet of roadway from the edge of our property line to the intersection. And so we agreed to these conditions to improve Church Road prior to planning board, but we were concerned about temporary construction easements that might be required from adjacent property owners. And we had heard from some of those property owners at the neighborhood meeting that they didn't want their property impacted. They were okay with the use, but didn't want their properties to be impacted by the case. And so the discussion with staff really came down to the highlighted language on your screen that would allow us to pay a fee in lieu if we didn't acquire the TCEs. And so what we did after planning board, and we appreciate staff working with us, was work on a section that met the safety concerns, but we could be comfortable would fit in the existing right-of-way. And so that's where we've arrived now. Is this section on your screen, and I've broken it down into 3 different colors because those are technically different street sections. But the conversation was you need at least 20 feet of roadway. And so we went through, and the yellow section there will be a 27-foot back of curb to back of curb section, curb and gutter on both sides, sidewalks on both sides, and then the green area will move to a section with a 21-foot travel lane, a rural street section on the north side to avoid impacts to those adjacent properties when or if they develop one day. They would be responsible for improving their side of the street. And then a curb and gutter and sidewalk on the south side. And then that sidewalk will extend all the way to the intersection of New Hill Holloman Road and Church Road to provide pedestrian connectivity. And then the blue section is where we'll be installing a turn lane there. So that'll be a wider section of the road. And then ultimately a traffic signal at the intersection if it's warranted by NCDOT. And so, overall, there will be a lot of improvements with this project, and I think it'll improve the traffic situation for everyone out here, including the, relatively new subdivision that was approved just off the left of your screen there. So that subdivision is going in regardless with the road as it is. And so I think this is a good opportunity to improve the entire street and to do it with a use that serves the community. And then finally, with those changes, the rezoning is in the public interest. First, it allows the Y to move to the next stage of internal approvals in the development process. And also, as I mentioned, the sole reason for the negative recommendation at Planning Board was the Church Road improvements. If you read through their report, I was at the meeting and they actually had trouble saying which policies were inconsistent, but it was a safety issue because of the road condition. And as you heard from Shelley, we've resolved that with the changes tonight. And then finally, it's consistent with the Big Branch Small Area Plan, and it'll add non-residential development to help sort of balance the town's tax base. I know there's been a lot of discussion about that. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions. I can start by answering Councilmember Gant's question about, first cross connectivity to the water reclamation facility. I believe in our very early sketch plans, we're showing a stormwater pond in that location, just because it's the lowest point of the site. That's not to say that couldn't be reconfigured. There's also, the stream buffer that, comes further south, I believe, than is shown, just than it looks like in the aerial. And so that would have to be worked around. That's not to say it can't be done, but there are challenges there. And then obviously those that Diane just mentioned with the buffer on the site, next to us. So, it's not to say we're against cross access. Get the point of connectivity and trying to maximize land, but it also, just sort of thinking about different issues. It could also open up the site plan approval for the water reclamation facility. I don't know if there's any other standard that could cause them to be non-compliant. If that property were to be developed. And then to the sidewalk connectivity question, I think, as part of our site plan, we will have a sidewalk that connects to the new sidewalk on Church Road. And then that sidewalk will extend internally to our site, at least to the entrance. And we're looking at, we're happy to look at site plan, when we have further engineering details, how far east we can extend it to New Hill Holloman Road. As Shelley mentioned, I think there's about 50 feet of frontage there, and 30 feet of it, I believe, is going to be taken up by the Big Branch Force Main easement. So that easement is coming through the corner right here, and then we'll follow the southern property line west. And then also the improvements at the ramp there. So I think it's possible it can be done. We just need, to really engineer that corner of the site to know what the constraints are.
But it's pretty narrow, but it does kind of widen out a little bit. So if there is some taken for the ramp or the road widening or whatever, it will be more than, it'd be like, I'm not sure how many feet, but maybe 60 or 70, it looks like to me.
Right.
If you go 20 feet in.
Right.
But okay.
So if I may, I found the site plan and it's all RCA in that corner. There's 200 feet of riparian buffer, another about 100 feet of RCA, and then the 200-foot perimeter buffer that Marty mentioned. So it's about 500 feet of just all environmentally protected area.
Okay. It would require some work on our part to change that if we did want to change it in the future.
Yeah, I don't know that well,
it's our land. We can do what we want in theory. But okay,
it would have to be replaced, but yeah.
Have to be replaced, okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Carpenter? All right, hearing none, thank you. We'll go ahead and open up the public hearing for comment. Ms. Elizabeth Stitt, the first speaker.
Elizabeth Raysted, 3113 Friendship Road. So I'm not here for or against the YMCA, okay? I want to be very clear on that. What I want to point out is the lack of representation, the process. So at the planning board meeting, there is a Wake County representative, and that is the only representative that these neighbors in this part of our community have, is that one person. They don't get to vote for any of you. They don't get to vote for that Wake County rep. That rep gets appointed. Well, that Wake County rep recused himself because he's affiliated with the project. And, this is supposed to be America. This is supposed to be the peak of good living. To end up in a situation where you have a community with no voice at all, no alternative representative to step in when he backs out. That similarly could be the same case with the ETJ. If the ETJ rep steps out, there is no representation. And so the objections that I've heard from the majority of my community is, where's our voice? So I understand that Mr. Akers is leaving and there's going to be a new rep appointed. And so we would like for the community to have a say in it. We also would like for you guys to consider to have a backup in case that next representative is not available for whatever reason, because that's the only voice that we have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Elizabeth Moore.
Good evening, everybody. This is my first time here, but I'm a longtime resident, and I used to be more involved in the community's activities. But as Elizabeth just said so nicely, we are Wake County, and my address is 3804 Mason Road, and then I also have the adjacent lot, which is on Pine Arch Way. 4036 Pine Arch Way. And sorry, I've had tongue surgery a couple years ago and then recently as well. And I just wanted to stand up. I don't have a prepared bunch of things to say. I want to just say that I feel really blessed to be here. I love Apex. I love where I live. I've lived there since 2001, and I also lived in California and New York State, and I was born in Pennsylvania. My father served in the military, and I was like an Army brat and moved around, lived a lot of different places. So you know, I really value being here. So yeah, mainly I want back what Elizabeth said about the voice part. I also wish my husband could be here, but because we built our farm together and we searched all over the country for an area like this, we have a bridle trail easement that goes around our 100-acre subdivision. Also, our neighbors are really special people, and they supported me, in fact, when my husband passed away 2.5 years ago. But yeah, so I've been trying to run my business, Victory Hill Farm, on my own, and I think I'm doing fairly well. But basically, we have a really very original kind of place. There's really no place else like it. And things that kind of concern me, I still have relatives in different parts of the country. And so things that are on my mind are, when I first moved here, for probably the first 10 to 12 years, I felt like Apex, their rate of development was really very moderate, pretty well thought out. Recently, I've seen some changes in that, and it does worry me. I'm not anti-development. I am very excited that maybe a YMCA could be coming and some other things potentially, but I do really want to encourage you guys to be really careful what you wish for. And I know it's really hard because you want to get, you know, the tax base and get income and increase services and connectivity. And, you know, Brett, you mentioned sidewalks and then we had a lovely young lady talking about agricultural use earlier. And I just put my 2 properties into, I'll go quickly, into the agricultural district to preserve them at this point. All of my neighbors, I think, are like-minded. I've spoken to all of them. If they all agreed that, oh, we should change, you know, that would be one thing, but they're all just terrific people. And, you know, I guess the last thing I really wanted to make sure I talked about was being really careful that we don't put so much cement in that people with like longer vehicles can't turn around and agricultural use vehicles can't get in and out. You know, I get these giant horse shipping vans in and hay suppliers and things like that. And, you know, I've planned pretty carefully, and I just want to encourage you guys all to really think about that. And the traffic is a big concern as well, because we've been very fortunate, really. So just be really careful. And thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Yeah. Thank you so much. All right, and thank you, Ms. Stitt, for speaking as well. We'll go ahead and close public hearing for comments on this, and let's open up discussion for the item. I'll just say I attended the planning board meeting, the presentation. Good job, Ms. Mayo, for that, and I'm just glad to see that staff and the applicant was able to come together and, you know, come up with a solution. So thank you so much for that. So discussion. Who wants to kick us off?
I'll just start off by saying after I had, watching the planning board meeting, I was really agreeing with, I saw how they got to a 7-0 and was completely on board with that. So I will say I was surprised to see the change. And I think that's a testament to you guys kind of working together to come up with a common set of solutions. Because the thing that jumped out at me was, okay, we're creating a bottleneck, and that's an area where we don't want to create that sort of an issue. So I appreciate the work on that. I'm still, I feel like, if there's a good use of YMCA, I think that is a good use. I think that in terms of overall value to the area, I think that's a good thing. I think that when we start looking at other potential uses, I could, without prejudging an application that never came in, I would view different rezoning applications much more skeptically. I mean, it's a harder that area is an area that I feel like is a harder thing for us to start taking a look at the rezoning when we're passing a few things in there. I just feel like that's an area that does, as many have said today, requires a little bit additional thought and thinking through. So I do think that there's some value to a YMCA. I think in terms of kind of use, that's not going to overburden. I feel like it's an appropriate thing. To contrary what Ms. Stitt said, I have no problem with being anti-YMCA. I know that's not a popular opinion to take, but if it's the wrong thing. And I don't think that's necessarily the wrong thing in this case. And I think that the changes that you guys made with regard to Church Road were important and in my eyes were the thing that would have stopped me from supporting this sort of project.
Ed, were the uses that you didn't like, let's say the YMCA deal falls through, were there uses that you didn't like that you want to highlight or talk about?
There were, without discouraging and prejudging any applications, because I think it's really important that when folks come in front of us, that they have the opportunity to make a pitch and make a comment and be able to get, for lack of a better word, as impartial a view as possible when they're coming in. So I certainly don't like to prejudge, but there are much more denser uses of that property that would cause me to ask whether or not that is going to add congestion or additional traffic, or what my real concern is, like, large vehicles that are going to be moving around in that area when we've got a few of those new housing areas over there that don't have the infrastructure of sidewalks along New Hill Road. And when you don't have a sidewalk or you don't have a bike lane, you'll have people still walking along the side, and that always causes me a lot of grief. There isn't a specific thing that I'm like, oh no, that definitely wouldn't be there. I think there's ways to make most projects work there, but I've got a real concern about how much we're placing in terms of constant and frequent use within that area.
Okay.
That a non-answer to your question? An answer to a non-answer?
Yeah, it was.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
There are definitely, we've been burned with having like a giant car dealership at the entrance to, the town of Apex. So, there are definitely times when we have to be really careful about that. And when I'm looking at the list of proposed uses for this, I feel like they are all reasonable uses for this area. So there's not really anything that I would remove from the list. So.
I was going to add, I think that this case is actually a success story. I think what we saw, the interaction at the planning board, the feedback that the applicant got from staff and the planning board is how the process is supposed to work. There are some concerns that the planning board expressed and staff expressed, and they pushed back on the applicant. The applicant's had a couple weeks to think about it, and they've come back to us with some revised conditions that address those concerns. And I am happy because I think the work has been done for us. I think they had those hard conversations and they worked it out before they came to us.
Which is very much appreciated.
Yes. I also want to add, I'm excited because I think that a YMCA, that use would be a great amenity to the community. And I think we should be excited about that. I think what it would bring to the area in terms of daycare, in terms of recreation, is needed to balance out the residential growth. And to the point I think the applicant made earlier, this is actually a downzoning. This is going from a mixed use highway, which you can do anything in, down to just commercial with the plan. I'm okay with the list of uses because I think I don't want us to shy too close to spot zoning the area and getting excited about one use and jumping on and saying, this is great, let's just do this. That's not how we operate. We've never done that before, to my knowledge. So applicants come to us looking for the entitlement that's equal to what the land use map is, and that's what they've done. That's what we do in every case. That being said, the applicant shared with us that a YMCA is planned, and I'm excited about that. And I think that's great. It's consistent with the land use maps, so I'll be supporting the project.
And I'll chime in, I guess, to address some of the comments. For a planning board that doesn't have anybody in that case from Wake County, it's like a pretty critical planning board. Being critical was the desire of the community. That's pretty. I think the 7-0 vote showed that. So, not sure if the person being there would have been more in favor of it or what. But and then the growth you mentioned, we have slowed down in our growth. And this council, I'm not sure if it's the market or it's the council or both. I mean, we're well down from where we were like 5 years ago by several percent. So I think if the desire is a little bit slower growth, you're seeing that, and the numbers should bear that out going forward, at least the last couple of years. I really hope with the site plan, there are things that maybe aren't ready for prime time as far as the connectivity with especially the sidewalk. I hope and when the site plan was in, all the road and easements are already taken care of. I hope there can be a connection to that road, because I think there can be, I asked about that because I was thinking about YMCA, that is the use. There can be a lap people can walk kind of around on New Hill Holloman when they finish that sidewalk and up Church Road. And so when if they're tired of swimming or whatever they're going to be doing here, tennis, they can just walk around a little bit, and I think it'd be nice. So I hope that can be achieved with the site plan, at least an easement. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. All right, got a motion and a second, and that's on the rezoning and.
And the annexation, yes, both.
Okay, all right. So motion Gant, second Mahaffey. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that's a unanimous vote. Thank you, everyone. All right, rezoning case 24 CZ 06. Ms. Amanda Bunce.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So this rezoning is located in the western part of our jurisdiction at the corner of Blazing Trail and Hume Olive Road. It's about 2 acres in size and is currently under development for duplex houses. You may recall this property, it's been before you before for a rezoning most recently, and was approved in 2023 to increase the density once it was determined that a riparian buffer no longer existed. Rezoning was approved, and then during the process of working on the revised subdivision plan, discovered that the additional lot could not be created because the only frontage would be on an alley, which the UDO does not allow. So it was suggested that either a UDO amendment be pursued or another rezoning. Staff worked on a potential UDO amendment, could not come to a resolution on that, so the applicant submitted this rezoning to add one condition, which is to allow lot frontage and primary access shall be allowed on a public alley for one lot, provided that a public sidewalk is built within a public access easement from the lot to a public street. And planning staff recommends approval of this rezoning, and the planning board recommended approval as well. They're meeting in May. The rezoning is reasonable in the public interest because it will provide the ability for the subdivision to achieve the permitted density that was approved from the previous rezoning case, and provide the needed flexibility of utilizing the public alley to meet the lot frontage and primary access requirements. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? Hearing none. The applicant is here.
The applicant is here.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. We'd like to hear from you, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Peter Knosson, Jones Knosson Engineering, 221 North Salem Street, Apex, engineer for the developer in this property. Thank you, Amanda, for pinch hitting. But yeah, this was rezoned in 2022 to increase the density because of a buffer removal. And this condition will allow us to utilize the density that was approved at that time. Just related to the alley itself, I want to let you know that an alley is a public right of way, so the lot will front public right of way, and Paradise Alley is constructed to a minor residential standard, so it does provide both fire access, emergency access, as well as access for trash pickup and such. So it's constructed to that standard. So with that, I'm glad to have staff's approval, and if you have any questions, certainly here to answer them.
Thank you, sir. All right, any questions for Ms. Knosson?
I had a question. I wanted to ask you about the status of a zoning condition that we had last time about the off-site sidewalk along Blazing Trail. I went back and read the condition. It was talking about on the east side of Blazing Trail, kind of near the roundabout, and it was going to be some HOA approval if that was kind of going to be requested, I guess. And I was wondering what's up with that now.
I reached out to the HOA president, and they did not allow us access to construct that sidewalk. If they do, we'll be happy to build it, but they told me no.
Okay. Was it a money thing, or was it just a off my lawn kind of question or response?
They did not want anybody encroaching on their property. Again, if you have a contact there or can help facilitate that, as I said, we'll be glad to. It's something that the owner and developer will do, but we just need to be granted that right of entry. And we also, the other thing that's part of it is just not building it. They need to grant us an easement because it's a public sidewalk on private property, which requires a recording of an easement.
Okay. I asked that just to remind you guys, because it would require only one crossing of Blazing Trail to get to the school for the people that live on the north of this development. And it's disappointing that this, I think, a reasonable request is getting that response. But okay, thank you for that status update.
And I will state here, I will reach out to them again.
Okay.
As part of this discussion, I will make that call.
Thank you. And the minute a kid gets hit by a car when they're crossing Mason Borough, they're going to want that sidewalk badly, and I would like to avoid that happening by only having one crossing to get to school. So,
how big is the section?
30 feet. It's to
right north of the property.
It's on the northwestern corner, and there's a roundabout with no sidewalk, and then there's sidewalk connects back up right there. It's just right there. It's very small, and it's only going to help them and their neighbors. Well, thank you for reaching out and your willingness to work on that. If there is a different opinion about the board at this point, that'd be great.
Yes, I'll do that.
Thank
you so much.
Sure.
Go ahead and open up public hearing for this item for comment. No one signed up to speak, so we will close discussion. Possible motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve Killingsworth.
Second.
Second, Gray. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passes unanimously. All right, we're moving on to new business 1, ordinance amendment, chapter 14, article 2, noise, presented tonight by Chief Jason Armstrong.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chief.
All right, so before you, what you have are our latest recommendations from staff. This consisted of the police department, legal, and also other town departments that would be impacted by changes to this ordinance. So this was a group effort. So what I wanted to highlight was some of the noteworthy changes that we're recommending in this ordinance. What you'll see as we go through in the full version of the ordinance that's been presented. We've added some new definitions to the ordinance. We have removed the measurement techniques. If you recall back to the work session that we had, that was one of our biggest barriers to really having an enforceable ordinance was the requirements of the measurement techniques. We added unreasonably loud stipulation to the ordinance. We added a permit requirement for sound amplification, and we amended the construction noise component, which was another big driver for our discussion that we had in previous work session. So I wanted to highlight some of the definitions that we added. So we added in here a noise sensitive area. Noise sensitive area includes, but is not limited to hospitals, rest homes, family care homes, group care facilities, schools, daycare facilities, churches, libraries, other similar institutions. So as you go through the recommended changes in the ordinance, you'll see we've put in some stipulations on time, some stipulations on distance from entities that fall into this category, where we have a little bit more enforceability in how some of our sensitive areas are treated. We added plainly audible definition here. It means any sound or vibration caused by sound that can be detected by a reasonable person of ordinary sensitivities using their unaided hearing faculties. This is really what is replacing the measurements that we had in place that we wanted to take out. And then lastly, a reasonable person means a person of ordinary sensitivities who is within the area of the audibility or perceptibility of the noises or vibration that transmits human activities such as conversation, sleep, work, or other such activities. In putting our recommendations together, as we had talked about in the work session, Wake County had recently updated their noise ordinance. So we looked at theirs. Raleigh had made some recent updates, if I'm not mistaken, and really looking at everybody else in the area to gauge what recommendations we were going to bring before you all to not only try to add things in here that was consistent with what we were trying to achieve, but then also have some consistency where we could with what's going on in the area as a whole. So unreasonably loud factors that we put into the ordinance is determining whether a noise or sound is unreasonably loud for purposes of this section. Factors that may be considered included or not limited to. So its volume, the volume of background noise, if any, in the area where it is produced, its proximity to residents or other developments where people sleep, its proximity to noise sensitive areas, the zoning and character of the area where it is produced, the time of day or night that it is produced, its duration, and whether it is recurrent, intermittent, or constant. When we were looking at making the recommendations, another thing that we looked at is really the complaints that we were getting from community members. What did those things consist of? So I know you all are well aware, familiar with the construction complaints and some of the others from specific locations and areas with music and different things. But we looked at some of the additional complaints that were brought to us that maybe were not relayed to you all, and we tried to make sure that all of those things were accounted for in the recommendations that we brought forward, because some things were very unique and things that we had never really seen before, and things that make noises that, with all the new technologies that are coming out, there are things that make noise for a variety of reasons, and different people are impacted in different ways by some of those things. So we feel as though that we did a good enough job of accomplishing or including all of those things in the recommendations that we have with some of these loud noises. Construction noise. The biggest thing that I want to highlight here is we took out the loud and excessive component, because we didn't have that defined previously, and that really was a big challenge in enforcing what people wanted to see, and I think what you all wanted to see in this ordinance. And like I said, if you look further down, one of the highlights is the unreasonable component. This one was also worked on with our building inspectors, because they needed to have the ability to approve work to be done outside of the times here when it was needed and when it met things that they needed to get done with what they have going on. So they did provide us some insight that we incorporated into the recommendation. Noise in public places. So I'm not going to read all of this to you all here, but I do want to make a comment, because this slide is slightly different from what you have in your packet, because what you have in your packet before we made a latest change or update to it, we had some language in there about either loud or excessive or something, and we wanted to take that out and remove it. And so what is shown on the screen is the latest updated language that removed that part in the very top. So I did want to highlight that is a change from what you see in your packet. And really what we're laying, the foundation that we're laying with this is spelling out the times where if noise is going to be in public spaces and public areas, public right-of-ways, things like that, where people are using sound amplification, given the distances that they need to be in compliance with for it to not be a violation of our ordinance. And then also specifying that we are adding a permit requirement to sound amplification that individuals would be able to apply for and to get beforehand of using sound amplification in some of these situations. The sound amplification permit, just really talking about the unlawful to operate or allow operation of any sound amplification equipment in public right-of-way, including streets, sidewalks, public vehicular areas, on any public property in excess of the limits prescribed by section 1433.18, which was what I just showed you in the previous slide, without having actual on-site possession of a permit issued by the Apex Police Department. The next one on here Sound amplification equipment operated pursuant to this subsection may not be located more than 10 feet off the ground. In addition, the person operating or allowing the operation of sound amplification equipment in violation of this section, the person to whom the permit was issued must be present. And so you can't apply for the permit and then just hand it off to somebody else and not be there. So if you were the person who obtained the permit, then we are requiring that you be on the premise during the time that the permit is being used. And the last section on here, what this one highlights is the distance. And I know there were some questions about this. And so hopefully, I think we did a good enough job of answering those in the email that came out. But multiple people can apply and obtain permits. And so, you know, the People's First Amendment rights, we can't infringe upon that. What we wanted to capture in this is that if we have multiple groups of multiple people that want to have sound amplification at the same event or in the same space, that there's just distance between them. And it's on a first come, first served basis. And so we can have as many permits as people apply, we can issue. We just need to make sure and coordinate that the location that their permit is going to be valid for is at least 100 feet away from the next space. And a good, you know, frame of reference is we're talking about across the street. If you look at it, you know, the distance requirement is, when you take the sidewalks into consideration, it's about the width of one of our regular roadways. And so, you know, we can have as many people get permits as would like permits to come out and have sound amplification. We just need to space them out so they're not all side by side on top of one another. And that is it as far as the overview, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all have.
Thank you, Chief, so much. Good job on removing the decibel meter stuff. That's great.
Thank you, sir.
Wish I'd had that a long time ago. I just have one question about construction noise. I think
Yes,
you
sir.
pointed this out in the work session, but just for clarity, so if there is a construction company and they're doing inside work, like punch list stuff, they're not making noise, the ordinance doesn't prohibit them from going in there doing work, right? How does that?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, as it's currently written, that's not my interpretation of that at all. And when we looked at the calls that we would get and the complaints that we would get, it was largely outdoor construction or structures that did not have walls and roof on them and the noise that was coming from that. Very rarely did we get something where the house had been framed, had walls up and a roof on it, and work was being done inside.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I think that's come up a couple of times and people just need some clarity on that. Can they go work? If there's no noise, it's not a.
Okay, and you know, I think that's the easy thing that we can address and add in some language into the ordinance to capture that.
Thank you.
I have
Yes,
a
sir.
question specifically related to construction. So do you anticipate, what do you anticipate happening if, say, you have construction vehicles showing up 15, 20 minutes earlier than the time specified, doing, you know, when they back up, there is obviously the beeping sound and stuff like that. What do you anticipate happening there?
So that would not be that's not going to be in violation of this ordinance. And when we talk about that, so I look at it as the sound and not what's creating the sound, but the sound. And there's not much difference in that sound than when a school bus backs up, or the school bus that backs up in front of my house at 6:30 in the morning every day. And we, you know, those two need to be treated the same, because what they are doing is exactly the same. It's just one is picking up kids, which is more acceptable for some people, versus the construction noise that is more of a nuisance to others. But we wouldn't look at that any differently with the changes that we've made in the ordinance, or that were recommended in the ordinance. Yes.
Chief, I'm going to ask the real unpopular question. This doesn't cover cicadas, right?
It does not, no, sir.
They're almost gone. They're almost
Yeah,
gone.
I know they're almost gone.
That's a good one.
That's the background noise part of it.
Yeah, exactly.
The ordinance.
Unreasonable background noise that's already pre-existing.
Yes.
I think it outside covers it.
Is there a motion to approve?
Make that motion to
All
approve.
right.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Look at that clock.
Yeah.
Town manager.
Yeah.
We get 7:29.
Do I say nothing?
45 minutes worth, preferably. Yeah.
31 minutes.
What?
Ready?
Yes, sir.
Despite My goal was 7:29. I've got a couple of things to mention, which will take us to 7:30. The first is I just wanted to give kudos to our park staff for the splash pad opening that was this past weekend. Many of you attended that. It was seamless to the public. There was a lot of stressing going on behind the scenes to make sure with 10 pressure zones and all the pipes and pumps and everything. But it was a great event, and we're looking forward to that being fully opened when we get into summer. It's kind of on a weekend schedule now, but it'll follow the pool schedule when we get the staff that is out of school. That was the first thing. The second is over the next 2 weeks, you may get questions related to this. We'll be sending out a couple hundred letters to residents, and it's related to the EPA recently because of issues with lead pipes that have come up. They have instructed that local governments need to come up with an inventory of our water systems. And so there are some homes that are a part of our system that were built prior to 1988 that there is unknown status when it comes to their pipes. So we're sending out, I think it's around 260 letters over the next 2 weeks. There will be 3 methods at which we can work with the homeowners to come up with how they want to tell us about their pipes. They can either do it themselves if they feel qualified. They can have an Apex staff member come in, and there's paperwork to do that process. Or if they don't want anyone coming into their home, there's a way we can do it in their front yard with a contractor that we have. So the letters are going out, and we're asking them to respond with the method of which they would like us to determine the pipe. So just so you know, those will be going out in the next couple weeks, so you may get some questions on
Mr. Rosberg, can you clarify that? My understanding is the shared town pipes, we don't think there's any lead in those pipes, right?
Right. And that's why it's really to the home itself, and we either have to come into their home or do it in their front yard by their meter to get what their their pipes are.
Okay.
Yeah, good
And
point.
is this letter being sent out to every resident or just to the homes that are pre-1988?
Right, just to those that are prior to 1988 that we've identified so far. It's about 260 homes at this point. And that's all that I have.
All right, thank you. All right, any other business?
We got the Mason Street building.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Oh, yes. Great point. So we've moved staff already, so we've kind of done a soft opening of the Mason Street building, but we'll do the official ribbon cutting on Friday at 3 o'clock. So you're all invited, and we've got some other special guests attending. But staff's excited to kind of take you through their new digs, and it's exciting times for us. I said it's perfect. I've come into festivals, building openings, splash pad. It's just been one good thing right after another, but that'll be this Friday.
We'll pay for it later with the
Right.
that stuff, yeah. It's coming.
Yep. All right. Any
If I
other?
could just, I do think it's important that we recognize that, we're gotten through the first part of festival season, and the staff has done an amazing job of getting us through all of these great events everyone in the town loves. But it's important to recognize that, the staff is putting in work. We have a lot of folks. So Parks and Rec, I know Lisa Ratchke is it's making this a turnkey operation. So hats off as we get ready for the second set. It's quarter 2. Does that get us through 7:35?
Yes.
It does.
All right, thank y'all for that. And also thank you, Corporal Stewart, for providing security tonight. Appreciate you. All right.
Do you want to say thank you?
Oh, yeah. Who are we thinking? Who did that?
Kendall.
Kendall. Okay. All right.
Yeah, Kendall drew that.
Nice.
And we have copies up here, so that's pretty amazing of our downtown.
All right.
Nice
Fantastic.
artistic ability.
Oh, yeah.
All
Super
right.
talented people.
Yes. Thank you for that. All right. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.